Welcome to The Explainer. So today, let's unpack this really complex relationship we all have with our digital lives and how it affects our well-being. We're living in this world that's built for connection, right? But for so many of us, it can feel like the exact opposite.
Okay, let's just dive right into this because I think we've all been there. You find yourself in that loop, just scrolling and scrolling, and you are definitely not alone. It's this bizarre paradox of modern life, isn't it? You're literally swimming in a constant stream of updates and photos and messages, but underneath it all, there's this weird feeling of loneliness or even anxiety. So, how can a tool that was designed to bring us closer together so often leave us feeling completely adrift?
You know, every time we open one of these apps, we're hoping for something. We're looking for a real connection with our friends, but then we scroll and somehow we end up feeling more lonely than when we started. We're searching for that sense of community, but what we actually get is this relentless cycle of comparison, where we're measuring our own behind the scenes against everyone else's highlight reel. Or maybe we're just looking for a bit of entertainment, a quick distraction, but it leaves us with this hollow, empty feeling. So the real question is, why does this keep happening?
To really get to the bottom of this, we've got to look at the science, and this is where it gets super interesting. A huge study from the European Union's Research Hub dug right into this, and what they found was that the sheer number of hours we spend online, well, that's not the full picture. The real secret is in how we're actually spending that time.
And here it is. This was the big aha moment from their research. They found there are two totally different ways we use social media. On one side, you've got passive use. This is the zombie scroll, just endlessly consuming content, watching videos, looking at pictures without really interacting at all. But then on the other side, you have active use, and that is all about real engagement. We're talking about sending a direct message to a friend, leaving a thoughtful comment, or actually creating and sharing something yourself.
Now, check out the data on this slide, because this really tells the story. The researchers found basically no significant link between active use and feeling lonely. But look at the people who spent more than 2 hours a day in that passive scrolling mode. For them, there was a huge, measurable spike in feelings of loneliness. So it seems like it's the consumption without the connection that's the real problem.
And here's the kicker. This is not an accident. It's by design. We have to remember that these platforms are built on something called the attention economy. Just think of it like this. Your attention is a currency. It's a valuable resource, and their entire business model is built to capture as much of that currency as possible. Features like the infinite scroll or autoplay videos, they aren't there for you. They're there to keep you glued to the screen in that passive mode, because your eyeballs are their product.
But the rabbit hole goes deeper than just loneliness. This constant connection in our digital lives is actually creating a whole new, much more complicated type of anxiety. It's a kind of stress that actually feeds on itself, and it can trap you in a really nasty psychological loop.
We've all heard of FOMO, right? The fear of missing out on all the cool things we see people doing online. And that's a real source of stress, for sure. But what scientists are starting to see now is something even more subtle, something that takes it to another level. So picture this. You're scrolling, you see something that makes you feel anxious or upset. That initial reaction, that's layer one. But then a second layer kicks in. That's when you start obsessing over your own reaction. You start thinking, why is this bothering me so much? Or, why can't I just shake this off? And that second wave of worry, that stress about being stressed, can be way more damaging than whatever triggered you in the first place.
And this has a name. Researchers call it metastress. It is, quite literally, the stress we feel about our own stress. It's a weirdly modern kind of anxiety where just being aware of our own mental state becomes another source of pressure. We're not just stressed anymore. We're stressed about why we're so stressed. It's exhausting. And this digital overload, this meta-stress, it doesn't just live in our own heads. Oh no. It ripples out and affects our most important relationships. Research on families shows that too much screen time is a huge source of conflict. We're talking 56% of teenagers say it's a major point of tension at home. It can make our communication really shallow, more about logistics and control than any real connection. And it goes both ways. When parents are always glued to their phones, it can make their kids feel incredibly isolated.
Okay, so with all these problems, the solution seems pretty obvious, right? Just quit. Go on a digital detox, unplug everything. But when scientists actually dug in and studied what happens when people do this, the results were, well, they were a lot more complicated than you might think. So here's the big question. Does just stepping away from it all actually fix things? Is it the cure-all we hope it is? To find out, a massive meta-analysis from the National Institutes of Health looked at all the different studies on digital detoxes to see what the combined evidence really says.
And what they found is pretty fascinating.
On the one hand, taking a break from social media does lead to a significant improvement in symptoms of depression. That is a clear win, no doubt about it. But, and this is the really surprising part, across all of those studies, taking a break had no statistically significant effect on our overall life satisfaction, our general stress levels, or our total mental well-being.
So what does that mean? Well, the researchers themselves point out that our well-being is just incredibly complex. Things like life satisfaction and stress are tied to our jobs, our health, our real-world relationships, all kinds of things that simply turning off your phone can't fix. A detox can help with one piece of the puzzle, for sure, but it is not a silver bullet.
So, what this all tells us is that the answer probably isn't total abstinence. It's about changing our relationship with technology. It's about shifting from that mindless, passive scrolling to a more conscious, mindful kind of engagement. It's about taking the power back.
So, let's get practical. How do we do that? It starts with your own personal toolkit. First, try setting timers for the apps you use the most. It's built right into your phone's settings. Next, and this is a game changer, turn off all the notifications that aren't absolutely essential. Reclaim your focus. Another great one is to schedule specific screen-free times, like keeping phones away from the dinner table. And maybe the most powerful tip of all? Practice mindful scrolling. Before you open an app, just pause for a second and ask yourself, why am I opening this right now? What do I actually want from this?
But look, our personal actions are just one piece of the solution. You can think of it like a three-legged stool. For real, lasting change, you need all three legs to be strong. You need us as individuals making conscious changes. You need the platforms to actually redesign their services to protect our well-being, not just hijack our attention. And you need policy and regulation to create a healthier digital world for everyone. And the good news is, this isn't just a fantasy, it's already starting to happen. You have things like the EU's Digital Services Act, which is forcing big platforms to be more transparent and safe. And in the UK, there's the Age-Appropriate Design Code, which actually requires online services to put the best interests of kids first and limit addictive features. This is progress. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final thought. In an economy that is literally designed to mine your attention and sell it to the highest bidder, maybe the most powerful and revolutionary thing you can do is to consciously decide where you place it. Because what you pay attention to, in a very real way, is what your life becomes. So what will you choose to focus on?